I shouldn't have said it out loud. But the truth slipped out before I could stop myself. Then stop making it so easy. I met her on a Tuesday afternoon of all days. Ordinary, forgettable. I'd just come back from a run, sweat still clinging to my shirt, when I noticed her standing in front of her gate. Frustrated, arms crossed, glaring at a stubborn lock that refused to budge. She wasn't the kind of woman you pass by and forget. Mid-40s, maybe. Lines at the corners of her eyes. But they didn't dull her. They sharpened her. Like she'd lived enough life to know exactly what she didn't want, and wasn't afraid to say so. Need a hand? I asked, already moving closer. She gave me a look. Not suspicious. Just measured. Like she was weighing the cost of letting someone younger, some neighbor kid she'd barely spoken to, step into her annoyance. It's fine, she said. But her hand slipped on the key again, knuckles white with stubbornness. I waited a beat. Then I held out my hand. Let me try. Something in her eyes flickered before she passed me the keys. The lock gave way in seconds. The kind of simple fix that feels like luck but earns you gratitude anyway. She exhaled and brushed her hair back, relieved. Thanks. No problem. I should have left it at that. Just a neighborly moment. But she lingered, standing a little too close to the doorway now, and I found myself noticing things I shouldn't. The faint scent of jasmine on her skin, the way the light hit her cheekbones, the curve of her wrist as she tucked the keys away. Can I make you a coffee? She asked, hesitant, like she already regretted saying it. I nodded before I could stop myself. Inside, her house felt lived in but carefully kept. Books stacked on a side table. A mug half-finished from earlier in the day. Curtains drawn halfway, leaving the room in soft, late afternoon shade. You don't have to, I started. But she was already at the counter, filling the kettle, avoiding my eyes. Her silence said more than words. When she finally set the cup in front of me, she sat opposite, arms folded loosely across her chest. So, she said, eyes narrowing slightly, are you always this helpful? Or just hoping I'd ask you in? It was supposed to be teasing, but her tone carried weight, half a challenge, half a warning. I smirked without meaning to. You think I planned the broken lock? She shook her head, lips twitching like she almost wanted to laugh. But then, quieter, more pointed, don't flirt with me. Her words hung in the air, sharper than the steam rising from my cup. I should have backed off. I should have nodded, changed the subject. Instead, something reckless in me leaned forward, elbows on the table. Then stop making it so easy. She froze, just for a second. Long enough for the tension to settle into the space between us like a third presence, invisible and undeniable. Her hand brushed the rim of her cup, fingers trembling slightly. She looked down, then back up at me with a stare that held too many contradictions at once. Regret, defiance, something dangerously close to interest. This is a mistake, she said. I should have agreed. I should have stood, thanked her for the coffee, and walked out the door. But my voice betrayed me again, low and steady. Then I guess neither of us should be here. The room went quiet. The kettle clicked off in the background. And then, just barely, her fingers shifted across the table, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off her skin. Not touching. Not yet. But closer than before. Could have left right then. A polite exit, a thank you for the coffee, and it would have been nothing more than a story about helping a neighbor with a broken lock. But the way her fingers hovered just inches from mine told me this wasn't nothing. Not anymore. She pulled her hand back, almost too quickly, and stood as if to shake off whatever had just passed between us. She busied herself at the counter, rinsing out a cup that didn't need rinsing. I leaned back in my chair, trying not to stare, but I couldn't help noticing the details that suddenly mattered too much. The slight tremor in her shoulders, the way she avoided looking at me, how she bit her lower lip like she was scolding herself. This feels, she started, then trailed off, letting the silence swallow the rest. Feels what? I asked softly. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned, arms crossed tightly now. I just got out of something. Messy. Long. I don't have space for. She stopped again. The words clung to the air, unfinished, dangerous. I nodded, though a part of me didn't want to. I get it. But I didn't get it. Not really. All I knew was that I wanted to sit here longer, to find out why she looked like she hadn't been truly seen in years. Her gaze finally met mine, and in it, there was a flicker of something raw, almost unguarded. Vulnerability. It knocked the air out of me more than anything else she'd said. I shouldn't be doing this, she murmured. I swallowed hard. My chest tightened with the weight of it. Neither should I. Her laugh came out short, bitter, like she didn't trust it. You're too young. You know that, right? You're supposed to be out there, living, making mistakes, not whatever this is. I wanted to tell her that maybe this was my mistake. Maybe I didn't care if it was. But the words got stuck. Instead, I studied the way her fingers twisted the edge of a towel. Restless. Like she needed to hold on to something but couldn't. I realized then that she wasn't just warning me. She was warning herself. The clock ticked too loudly in the quiet kitchen. My coffee had gone cold. But neither of us moved to end it. She sighed, softer this time, almost like surrender. You should probably go. My throat went dry. I shifted in my seat, about to stand, about to walk away, when her hand landed gently on my arm. Not firm, not fleeting, just enough to stop me. Unless, she whispered, eyes locked on mine, her breath catching in her chest. The unfinished word pulsed between us, heavier than anything she could have said outright. Her hand lingered on my arm longer than it should have. Just enough to send a pulse racing down my spine. Just enough to make it impossible to breathe evenly. I tried to keep my voice steady. Unless what? Her lips parted, but no words came. She looked at me like she was caught between running and leaning in closer. The kettle clicked again, loud in the silence, as if the room itself was reminding us to stop. But neither of us moved. You should, she began, her voice trembling. You should know this isn't me. I don't do this. I don't let people in. Not like this. I swallowed hard. Then why me? Her gaze faltered, dropping to where her fingers still rested on my sleeve. She pulled away slowly, almost regretfully. Maybe because you look at me like I'm not broken. That hit me deeper than it should have. I wanted to say something, anything, but before I could, her phone buzzed on the counter. Loud, jarring. She flinched, snatched it up, glanced at the screen, and without answering, silenced it with a firm tap. Her jaw tightened. Everything okay? I asked. X? She muttered, setting the phone down face first. Persistent. The word carried more bitterness than explanation. She turned back toward me, softer now. See? This is why. You shouldn't get pulled into my mess. I should have agreed. I should have stood up, thanked her again, and walked out into the safe night. Instead, I leaned forward, elbows on the table, unable to keep the words back. I don't care about the mess. Her eyes locked onto mine, wide, almost disbelieving. And for a second, the air between us shifted, charged, unsteady. Then she reached across the table, brushing at a stain on the edge of my sleeve that didn't even exist. Her fingers grazed my skin in the process. Just a second, maybe less. But it was enough. Too much. I sucked in a breath, forced myself to sit back, to put distance between us. We should stop. Her laugh was soft, bitter, almost mocking herself. You think I don't know that? We sat there in the heavy silence that follows when both people know what they're denying but can't quite let go of. Finally, she pushed her chair back, stood, and crossed to the window. She parted the curtain with 2 fingers, staring out into the dark street. People would never understand, she said quietly. Not my friends. Not yours. Not anyone. I rose, moving before I realized it. Close enough that when she turned, we were only inches apart. I could see the tiny flecks of tired gold in her eyes, the faint crease at her brow, the way her breath hitched when she noticed how close I was standing. Neither of us spoke. The silence was its own question. Her lips parted as if to say something, but instead, she let the curtain fall shut. The room dimmed again, shadow closing in. And in that shadow, with nothing left between us but breath, I wondered, were we about to cross the line? The room was dark except for the faint glow of the lamp in the corner. Shadows pressed against us like they wanted in on the secret we weren't saying out loud. She stood near the window, her arms wrapped around herself, like if she held tight enough, she could keep everything contained. I stayed where I was, still feeling the echo of her hand on my sleeve, the weight of her silence. Finally, she spoke, her voice low. This isn't right. I should have agreed. I should have put her at ease. But instead, I said, then why does it feel like it is? Her head snapped toward me, eyes flashing with something sharp, anger, maybe, or fear. But beneath it, something softer she didn't want to name. She broke off, pressing a hand to her forehead. You're too young. Do you get that? You don't know what you're asking for. I stepped closer, careful but deliberate. Then tell me, what am I asking for? Her laugh was shaky, not amused. Complication, regret, the kind of mistake people whisper about when you're not in the room. I searched her face, and for the first time I caught it. The faint crack in her armor. She wasn't just warning me off. She was warning herself of what she wanted. I don't care what people whisper, I said. I only care if you want me here. Her lips parted, and for a breath, I thought she might actually say it. Instead, she looked away, her voice breaking softer than before. You have no idea how long it's been since someone asked me that. Something in my chest tightened, almost painful. She wasn't just a woman holding back. She was a woman who hadn't been chosen in too long. Without thinking, I closed the space between us. Close enough that I could see the way her pulse fluttered in her neck, hear the faint tremor of her breath. You don't have to answer, I said. I can see it. Her eyes darted up to mine, sharp, wounded, wanting. You think you can see me? All of me? Even the parts one don't show? Yes. The word came out too fast, too certain. She stared at me like she was trying to decide if I was lying, or if she wanted me to be telling the truth. Then she whispered, You'll regret this. I swallowed, every nerve on edge. Then let me. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, vibrating, like the pause before a storm breaks. Her hand lifted, almost on its own, brushing against my chest. Not firm, not even sure, but real. I held my breath, waiting for the final step, hers or mine. But instead, she froze, her eyes locked onto mine with something raw, unfiltered. What are we doing? She whispered. And in that loaded question, everything we'd been avoiding surged to the surface. Her question, what are we doing? Still hung in the room when her phone buzzed again on the counter. Louder this time, more insistent. She flinched but didn't move. I glanced toward it, then back at her. You can answer, I said, though my voice sounded tighter than I meant. She shook her head. No, not right now. The buzzing stopped, leaving the room in a silence that seemed sharper than before. I should have let it go, but something pushed me forward. Is it him again? Her throat tightened as she swallowed. Yes, and no. That didn't make sense, and she knew it. She sighed, rubbing her forehead. It's not just an ex. It's... She stopped, hesitated, then finally forced it out. It's your professor. From the university. The words knocked the air out of me. What? She looked away, almost ashamed. We dated. Years ago. Before you ever showed up in his class. For a moment, I couldn't move. The room tilted. Every conversation I'd had with him, every sharp look he'd given me, it all clicked into place. You never thought to mention that? My voice came out harsher than I intended. Her eyes snapped back to mine, defensive now. Mention it when? When you came in here with your reckless eyes and your too easy smile. You think I planned any of this? I bit the inside of my cheek, fighting the urge to lash out. But underneath the shock, another thought pressed in. He had called her, more than once. He wasn't finished with her. And what? He's still trying to get you back? Her silence was answer enough. I paced a step, running a hand through my hair. So I'm not just some kid making a mistake. I'm walking straight into someone else's unfinished story. Her face softened then, her voice almost breaking. No, you're the first thing that hasn't felt unfinished. The honesty of it hit me harder than the revelation itself. My anger dulled, replaced by something messier. The knowledge that she wasn't just holding me at a distance to protect herself. She was caught in something larger, heavier, tangled in a past that hadn't let her go. I stepped closer again, my chest tight. Then tell me right now, if he called tomorrow and you answered, would you go back? She blinked, stunned by the bluntness. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, she shook her head slowly, deliberately. No, she whispered. I wouldn't. The room seemed to exhale with her. But before I could respond, a hard knock rattled the door. Once, twice, insistent. She froze, eyes wide. We both knew who it was before she even moved toward the handle. And for the first time all night, I wasn't sure if she would open the door, or if I wanted her to. The knock on the door thundered through the house, each strike louder than the last. She stood frozen, one hand hovering near the knob, the other clutching the edge of the table like she needed something solid to keep her steady. Don't, I said quickly, my voice sharper than I meant. Her eyes darted to mine. Fear, regret, something like shame. If I don't, he'll just come back. Then let him, I snapped, stepping closer. My pulse was racing, half with anger, half with something I couldn't name. What about me? What about what's happening right here? She swallowed, her throat moving slowly. This shouldn't even be happening. The knock came again, harder, almost shaking the frame. Her shoulders hunched at the sound, but she didn't move. I stepped closer still, close enough that I could see the tension in her jaw, the faint tremor of her hands. Then tell me to go. Look me in the eye and tell me you don't want this. Her lips parted. For a second, she almost said it. I saw the war inside her, the part that wanted to shove me out, and the part that didn't want me to leave. She whispered instead, I can't. The words ripped through me, leaving me raw. The knocking stopped suddenly, replaced by silence on the other side of the door. Heavy, waiting silence. She sagged against the table, like the weight of holding everything back had finally crushed her. I reached out, hesitated, then touched her hand. This time she didn't pull away. I don't care about him, I said, my voice rough. I don't care what people think. I need you to tell me I'm not the only one feeling this. Her eyes filled, not with tears exactly, but with something heavy, breaking. She turned her hand so our fingers laced together, slow, deliberate. You're not, she said, her voice barely audible. The quiet between us was no longer about denial. It was about what came next. The silence outside the door stretched on, but neither of us moved to check. For the first time, the world beyond these walls didn't matter. You're going to regret this, she murmured again, but softer now, not as a warning, more like a confession of her own fear. Then let's regret it together, I said. She looked at me like I'd just broken something open in her chest. And maybe I had, because in the next breath she closed the distance. Her forehead touched mine, tentative at first, then steady. We didn't kiss. Not yet. It wasn't about that. It was about the weight lifting between us, the truth finally said out loud. Her breath trembled against me. Stay. One word. A decision. And for the first time since I walked into her house, there was no hesitation left in me. The house was quiet now. The knocking had stopped, the street outside gone still, as if the night itself had finally taken a breath. She sat at the table, her hands still tangled in mine. Neither of us spoke for a while. We didn't need to. Something had shifted. Something we'd both been circling all night but never naming. When she finally did speak, her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. I've spent years letting people decide for me. What I should want, what I should give up, when to start over. She looked down at our hands. But this feels like the first thing I chose. The weight of those words landed heavy in my chest. I thought of her ex, of the calls she silenced. I thought of the warning in her eyes when she told me she was broken, the fear she carried like a shield. And then I thought of now, her choosing me despite all of it. I didn't plan this either, I admitted. But I can't walk away from it. She smiled faintly, tired but real. You realize how complicated this will be? Of course. I squeezed her hand. But what part of life isn't? We sat in that truth for a moment, letting it sink in. Not perfect, not easy, but ours. The silence outside the door stretched on. Whoever had been knocking was gone now, but their presence lingered like a ghost in the air. She glanced at the door once, then back at me, eyes steady. He's not my future, she said. I nodded. Then neither of us looks back. Her laugh came out soft, almost disbelieving. You make it sound simple. It's not, I said. But it's worth it. She leaned back, exhaling long and slow, like she'd been holding her breath for years and only now could finally release it. The night grew late, the lamp humming quietly beside us. She stood, hesitated, then touched my cheek with a kind of gentleness that undid me more than anything else had. Stay, she repeated. This time it wasn't just a plea. It was a decision. So I did. Not because it was easy. Not because it was the right thing by anyone else's standards. But because in that moment, choosing her meant choosing the kind of honesty I didn't know I was capable of before tonight. And she, after everything, chose me too. Stories don't always end neatly. They end with choices, with consequences we don't fully see yet. But this one, it ended with us, finally on the same side of the line we'd been afraid to cross. Speech Balloon, did you enjoy the story? Red Heart, what kind of stories would you like to hear next?